Hi guys, so in this video we'll be doing three different things. The first one is going over net errors and omissions. This is an important concept. The second thing is doing two questions about BOP, and then the third thing is discussing what a BOP disequilibrium is. Okay, so let's start. So starting off with the first concept, net errors and omissions. So the balance of payments sheet is a balance sheet that must balance when all its component parts are taken together. When statistics are compiled, it is inevitable that there may be failure to record items, errors in recordings, because obviously the data is huge in this case. We are taking into account all international transactions that are happening from the country, within the country, and so obviously the data is huge in this case, and the errors which do come with it are inevitable. So this can cause discrepancies, which is why a net errors and omissions figure, which was previously known as the balancing item, in my opinion, that's a more accurate definition in this case, or it's easier to understand that way, is used to ensure that the BOP taken together balances. Now let's have a look at these two figures. So in this case, let's just call this debit. This is the debit in your current account, in your balance of payment, sorry, and this is your credit. This one is your credit. So in this case, let's say if the debit is higher than the credit, then obviously you will use your foreign reserves to really fulfill this debt or this gap between the two. But in the end, let's say even after you do that, there is some sort of gap which is left, probably due to the net errors and omissions sign, because there is a problem in the end, right? There are errors and there needs to be some sort of change in order to nullify the effect of those errors. And so what we'll do over here is that we have this other diagram. This was the initial diagram, this is this is the initial diagram, this is the final diagram. So again, you have your two sort of rocks. This is your debit rock, which we had initially, and this is your credit rock, right? And since they were out of balance initially, and since we know the balance of payments, as the name suggests, is a balance sheet, and so it needs to be balanced at the end. So we will use this figure, which is known as the net, which is known as the balancing item, sorry, which is known as the balancing item. And so by using this, what we can do is we can balance everything out, and so the final change will be 0. And now moving on to the two questions which I initially mentioned. So in this case, what's happening is we have this person which is a UK resident who buys shares in Microsoft in 2018, and the company declares dividends in 2019. Microsoft in this case is present in the US. It's located in the US, and the person is in the UK. So the question is, how and where will this be recorded on UK's BOP? So in UK's BOP, initially in 2018, this guy is sending money out to the US, and so he's going to convert UK pounds to US dollars, which is why it has a minus sign in 2018, because it's a debit on the BOP of the UK. And it will be counted on the financial account portfolio. I know the writing is a bit off, but this is financial account portfolio. So it will be accounted for over there, since obviously this is part of making some sort of investment, and that too in a paper asset, which is a share in this case. And so that's why this will be accounted for on the financial portfolio. Now in 2019, what's going to happen is Microsoft starts giving back dividends on the shares which the shareholders initially bought. And so when this money starts coming back into the UK, it will be a credit on the UK's BOP, because money is coming in, right? And we have the current account over here, and so it will be accounted for on the current account, and within the current account, specifically in the income flows part of the current account, because money is being earned on, let's say, an investment which was previously made, and so it will be accounted for on the income flows part. And the second part of the question is, how will this be accounted for on the BOP of the United States of America? So in this case, initially in 2018, when the UK resident bought a share, right? So he's paying money to Microsoft to buy the share, and this money is going out of the UK into the US. So what's going to happen is it will be accounted for as a credit on the BOP of the US initially, and that too on the financial account portfolio. because money is coming in to buy paper asset in this case. And in 2019, when Microsoft starts giving out dividends, what's going to happen is money will go out of the US, and so that will be accounted for on the current account, and specifically on the income flows part of the current account, and that too as a debit, not a credit, because money is going out of Microsoft into the pockets of this person in the UK. So that's a debit on the BOP of the US. Now, the third topic which we are supposed to cover in this video is BOP disequilibrium. So, a general mindset is that whenever the economy faces a BOP surplus, that's actually better for the economy, and so that should be the equilibrium. Or a deficit is worse for the economy and it's not good for the economy, or whatever. So, that's not entirely true actually. As we will discuss later on, both of these have their own advantages as well as disadvantages. So, an equilibrium, or specifically a BOP equilibrium, is not a surplus nor is it a deficit. It's basically something in between. So, let's say if a country or an economy in this case experiences a surplus, so the surplus is actually a deviation from the equilibrium, and if it faces a deficit, it again is a deviation from the equilibrium point. And so in an economy, what we're looking for is not a surplus nor a deficit, rather what we're looking for is a balance, which is the equilibrium point. And so this can only be achieved if years of surpluses, let's say if you have successive years of surpluses, year 1, year 2, year 3, we keep on experiencing surpluses in this case. Now, to offset these surpluses, what we actually need is years of deficits, right? So another year, year 4, year 5, and year 6 of deficits, and that too equal deficits as in year 1, 2, and 3. So what will happen in this case is these surpluses will be offset by these deficits. And so in the end, even though we were experiencing these deviations in terms of surpluses or in terms of deficits, when these surpluses cancel out the deficits or vice versa, we'll reach the equilibrium point again. And so this is exactly what we're looking for in an economy. And any deviation from this path, let's say if you're experiencing these years of successive surpluses or deficits, these are deviations from the equilibrium point, and so this is known as a BOP disequilibrium when we are not in equilibrium basically. So whenever you are in successive years of surpluses, you are in a BOP disequilibrium, or even in terms of deficits.